The notification arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday that felt like every Tuesday before it. Elena Reyes sat in the parking lot of St. Michael's Hospital, engine off to save gas, watching her breath fog the windshield of a 2001 Toyota Camry that had 214,000 miles, and prayers holding it together. Her phone glowed in the darkness, battery at 8%, showing an email from a law firm she'd never heard of. Subject: if you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. Urgent estate matter requiring your immediate attention. Elena almost deleted it. Scams came dressed in urgency, promising inheritances from Nigerian princes or distant relatives who'd never existed. She had 47 minutes before her shift started. 47 minutes to decide whether to use her last $3 for a coffee that would keep her awake or save it for Isabella's school lunch tomorrow. But something made her open it. Maybe exhaustion. Maybe the particular desperation of someone who'd been drowning for so long that even obvious traps looked like lifelines. Dear Miss Reyes. The email began in formal typeface that looked expensive even on her cracked phone screen. We represent the estate of Marcus Valentino Reyes, deceased. Our records indicate you are his sole surviving heir. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience to discuss matters of inheritance. Marcus Valentino Reyes. The name hit like a punch to the stomach, stealing breath she couldn't afford to lose. Her father, the man who'd walked out when she was 6, leaving behind a mother who worked herself to death, and a daughter who learned early that promises were just words people said before disappointing you. Elena's hands shook as she stared at the screen. Her father had been dead for 3 months, according to the email's timestamp. 3 months, and she'd felt nothing, known nothing, because they'd been strangers for 28 years. The universe had a cruel sense of humor, sending news of inheritance from a man who'd never sent birthday cards. She should delete it, should start her shift, mop the floors of the cardiac wing, empty trash cans in rooms where people fought for life while she fought for rent, should ignore this obvious scam because nothing good came from men like Marcus Reyes, not even in death. Instead, she called the number listed. A man answered on the second ring, his voice carrying the smooth authority of someone accustomed to being believed. Whitmore and Associates, night service. How may I direct your call? I got an email. Elena's voice came out smaller than intended, roughened by years of holding back everything she felt. About Marcus Reyes. I'm his daughter. Miss Reyes. Thank you for calling. The formality shifted, became somehow warmer. Let me transfer you to Mr. Whitmore. He left instructions to put you through immediately, regardless of the hour. The hold music was Mozart, elegant and out of place in the parking lot of a hospital where Elena spent nights making minimum wage and trying not to think about tomorrow. She checked the time. 42 minutes now. If this call ran long, she'd be late. And Maria had already warned her that one more tardiness meant termination. Miss Reyes. Harrison. Whitmore. The new voice was older, carrying decades of legal precision. I apologize for the late hour, but I understand your situation requires delicate timing. My situation? Elena's defenses went up immediately. You don't know anything about my situation. Fair enough. Let me tell you what I do know. Your father, Marcus Valentino Reyes, died intestate on February 14th. He owned one asset, a condemned hotel in downtown Los Angeles, the Valentino Grand. Perhaps you've heard of it? The Valentino Grand. Elena's memory supplied images from childhood, hazy but persistent. Her father in a suit that seemed too expensive, taking her to a building that touched the sky. Marble floors, gold, fixtures, a penthouse view that made the city look like a toy set spread beneath them. Then, nothing. He'd left. The memories became dreams, became things she told herself she'd imagined. "I thought it was demolished years ago," she said, voice carefully neutral. "Partially. The city condemned it in 2015 after structural issues were discovered. Your father fought the demolition order for years, but he lacked resources for repairs. The building stands empty now, scheduled for complete demolition in 6 weeks. As his sole heir, ownership transfers to you." Elena laughed, the sound bitter and sharp. "So, I inherit a condemned building that's about to be demolished. That's perfect. That's exactly what I'd expect from Marcus Reyes." "There's more." Harrison's voice carried something Elena couldn't identify. Hesitation, concern. "The city has offered to purchase the property for $500. It would cover demolition costs and clear the title. Many people in your position would consider it a mercy. $500. $500 would pay the electric bill that was 3 months overdue, would buy Isabella new shoes that fit instead of hand-me-downs held together with duct tape, would be gone in a week and change nothing about the trajectory of their lives." "What's the catch?" Elena asked. Because there was always a catch. No catch, just a choice. You could sell to the city, or you could see the property first. Your father left a letter with us. He was very specific that you should read it before making any decisions. Through the windshield, Elena could see the hospital entrance, the revolving doors that led to another night of invisible labor. Isabella was sleeping at her sister Carmen's apartment. The 4th time this month, Elena had imposed on family who had their own struggles. "I work nights," she said, hearing the exhaustion in her own voice. "I can't just take time off to look at a condemned building." "I understand. However, I should mention that the letter contains a specific instruction. Your father wrote, 'Tell Elena that the Valentino Grand has one more secret. Tell her to look where we watched the sunrise. Tell her that some treasures are worth more than the buildings that hide them.'" The words landed like stones in still water, sending ripples through memories Elena had tried to bury. Where we watched the sunrise, the penthouse floor. She'd been 5, maybe 6, small enough that her father had lifted her onto his shoulders to see better. They'd watched dawn paint the sky in colors that seemed impossible, and he'd said something she'd forgotten until this moment. "One day, Mija, all of this will mean something. Remember that morning. Remember where we stood. The most valuable things are always hidden in plain sight." "When can I see it?" The question came before Elena could stop it, before logic could intervene with all the reasons this was foolish. "Tomorrow morning? I can meet you there at 10 a.m. The property is technically yours, but city inspectors monitor it regularly. We should document your visit officially." Elena did the math. Her shift ended at 7 a.m. If she skipped sleep, if Isabella stayed another day at Carmen's, if the universe granted her this one small mercy, she could make it work. 10 a.m., she agreed. "But Mr. Whitmore, if this is some scheme to get me to pay for demolition, or back taxes, or whatever my father left behind, I have nothing. Literally nothing. You understand?" "I understand, Miss Reyes. But I think you should read the letter. Sometimes our fathers surprise us." The call ended. Elena sat in the parking lot for another moment, watching the clock tick toward midnight. She should go inside, should forget this conversation, should accept that Marcus Reyes had given her nothing in life and couldn't give her anything in death. Instead, she pulled out the photo she kept folded in her wallet. It was creased and faded, but the image remained clear. A little girl with dark curls sitting on a marble staircase in a building that gleamed like a palace. Her father beside her, his hand on her shoulder. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. Both of them smiling like the future held only good things. The Valentino Grand, before it fell apart. Before he did. Elena tucked the photo away and headed inside to start her shift. Tomorrow she would face ghosts. Tonight she would mop floors and pretend that hope wasn't the most dangerous thing in the world. The Valentino Grand stood on 5th Street like a rotting tooth in an otherwise revitalized mouth. Chain-link fence surrounded the property, plastered with warning signs and notices of impending demolition. Elena arrived at 9:45, giving herself time to absorb the shock before Harrison appeared. The building was worse than she'd imagined. Much worse. The elegant facade she remembered had surrendered to time and neglect. Windows were broken or boarded up. Graffiti covered the lower floors in aggressive colors. The marquee that once spelled out Valentino Grand in lights hung by a single bolt, letters missing, the remaining ones spelling something that looked like violence. This had been her father's legacy. This wreckage, Miss Reyes. Harrison Whitmore materialized beside a BMW that looked obscene parked next to Elena's dying Camry. He was 60-something, silver-haired, wearing a suit that cost more than Elena made in 3 months. But his eyes were kind, and he carried a leather portfolio like it contained something precious. "It's worse than I expected," Elena admitted, unable to look away from the building. "Structural engineers declared it unsafe in 2015. Your father spent his last years trying to prove them wrong, trying to find funds for repairs, trying to." Harrison trailed off. "Well, trying. Failing, you mean?" Elena's voice was flat. "That's what Marcus Reyes did best." Harrison pulled a thick envelope from his portfolio. "Before we go inside, your father's letter. He insisted I give it to you before you saw the building." The envelope was heavy, expensive paper, with Elena's name written in handwriting she barely recognized. She opened it with fingers that shook despite her efforts at composure. "My dearest Elena," the letter began, and already she wanted to stop reading, to reject the affection from a man who'd abandoned it. "I know I have no right to call you that. No right to anything from you. I left when you were 6 years old. Walked away from the best thing in my life because I was a coward who thought dreams mattered more than daughters. I've regretted it every day since. The Valentino Grand was going to be my masterpiece. I built it with money I didn't have, filled it with treasures I couldn't afford, decorated every floor like royalty would visit. Your mother begged me to be reasonable, to think about our family instead of my ego. I didn't listen. The hotel failed within 3 years. Everything I'd built collapsed, and I was too ashamed to come home and admit she'd been right. I should have come back anyway, should have chosen you over my pride. Instead, I spent 28 years alone in this building, watching it decay, unable to let go of the one thing I'd created even as it destroyed me. But Elena, I kept one secret, one treasure I never sold, never told anyone about, not even during the worst years. I kept it for you, always for you. In the penthouse, in the floor beneath the sunrise room where I held you that morning, there's a safe room I had constructed during the original build. The entrance is hidden beneath the fountain tiles in the center of the main salon. You'll need to remove exactly 37 tiles in a specific pattern. I've enclosed the diagram. Inside that room, you'll find something I acquired in 1992, before you were born, before I lost everything. A collection I paid $200,000 for, money I should have saved for your college fund. I've never forgiven myself for that. But the collection is worth far more now. I had it appraised 3 years ago by a man who didn't ask questions about how a failed hotelier could own such things. His estimate was conservative. $150 million. I wanted to tell you, wanted to call you 1,000 times and explain that everything I'd lost, I'd done to protect this one gift. But I was dying, Elena. Cancer. And I was too much of a coward to face you even then, to watch you look at me and see the father who'd failed you. So I'm doing this instead, leaving you a treasure and hoping you'll understand that some men destroy everything they touch, except the things they hide away. I hid this for you, protected it, spent 28 years in poverty to keep it safe. The city wants to demolish this building in 6 weeks. If you don't retrieve what's in that safe room before then, it'll be crushed to rubble along with everything else. They'll never know what they destroyed. No one will. I'm sorry, Mija, for everything, for leaving, for choosing wrong, for dying before I could tell you this in person. But I loved you every day, even when I was too broken to show it. The sunrise room is waiting. Go see what I kept for you. Your father, Marcus. Elena read the letter 3 times, each pass making her hands shake harder. $150 million. The number was absurd, impossible. The fantasy of a dying man trying to rewrite a narrative that had ended decades ago. Miss Reyes? Harrison's voice was gentle. Are you all right? My father was delusional, Elena said, folding the letter with sharp, angry movements. He spent 28 years alone in a condemned building, convinced he had some secret treasure. That's not legacy. That's mental illness. Perhaps. Harrison pulled out another document, but this is the appraisal he mentioned, dated 3 years ago. The appraiser's signature is here, along with his credentials. He's legitimate, well respected, in certain circles. Elena took the paper, scanning words that made no sense. Colored diamonds, rare beyond measure. Conservative estimate, $150 million, potentially higher at auction. This could be fake, she protested, even as her pulse raced. Anyone can print official-looking documents. They can, but the appraiser is still alive. I called him yesterday. He remembers your father, remembers the collection. He's willing to testify to its existence, if needed. Elena looked up at the Valentino Grand, at the wreckage that had consumed her father's life. Somewhere in that building, on a floor she hadn't seen in 28 years, might be the answer to every prayer she'd whispered over unpaid bills and crying daughter. Or might be nothing. Another disappointment in a life built from them. Show me, she said, making a choice she'd probably regret. Show me the penthouse. The lobby was worse inside than out. The marble floors she remembered were cracked and stained, covered in debris and the detritus of homeless camps. Graffiti-covered walls that had once been elegant. The grand staircase, where her father had photographed her, was missing steps, the banister torn away and sold for scrap. Harrison had brought flashlights and breathing masks. The elevator doesn't work. We'll need to climb. 23 floors. They climbed in silence, Elena counting steps because it kept her from thinking. The building groaned around them, settling into its death with sounds that seemed almost human. Each floor revealed new devastation. Hotel. Rooms stripped of anything valuable. Bathrooms destroyed. Windows broken. Evidence of fires, of squatters, of time's patient demolition work. By floor 15, Elena's legs burned. By 20, she was breathing hard, tasting dust through the mask. Harrison moved with surprising stamina for a man his age, leading her through corridors that seemed designed to confuse. Finally, the penthouse level. The door was locked, but Harrison had keys, multiple sets on a ring that had belonged to Marcus. The door swung open on hinges that screamed protest. The penthouse was a time capsule of faded glory. The main salon still held furniture, though everything was covered in dust and water damage. The fountain Elena's father had mentioned dominated the center of the room, dry for decades, its tiles depicting some scene from mythology she didn't recognize. But the view, God, the view, even through dirty, cracked windows, Elena could see all of Los Angeles spread beneath them. The city her father had tried to conquer, and that had conquered him instead. She walked to the window, finding the exact spot where he'd held her that morning she barely remembered. "The sunrise room," Harrison said, quietly. "Your father kept this floor locked for years. No one's been up here except him." Elena turned back to the fountain. 37 tiles. The diagram her father had enclosed showed a specific pattern. Tiles that looked random, but formed something deliberate if you knew where to look. "Wheel. Need tools," Harrison said, examining the fountain. "These tiles are set in mortar. Probably take hours to remove safely." "I have a shift at 7 p.m., Elena said, checking her phone. 11:30 a.m., and I need to pick up my daughter by 3. I can arrange for help. Professional contractors who can do this, quickly and safely." Elena thought about contractors, about letting strangers know about potential treasure, about word spreading before she even knew if it was real. "No," she decided. "Just us. You have tools in your car?" "Basic ones. But then we start now." They worked for 6 hours. Harrison had a hammer and chisel in his BMW's emergency kit, along with work gloves and a tarp. Elena attacked the tiles with an intensity born of desperation and anger, taking out 28 years of abandonment on mortar that crumbled beneath her fury. Tile by tile, the pattern emerged. Not random at all, but deliberate. A spiral moving inward toward the fountain's center. Harrison documented everything with his phone, taking photographs and measurements, working with the methodical precision of someone who understood that details mattered. By tile 35, Elena's hands were raw despite the gloves. By 36, she could see the edge of something beneath the fountain's base. Metal, maybe steel, certainly not part of the original construction. The 37th tile came free with a sound like a sigh. Beneath it, set into the floor itself, was a biometric scanner that looked impossibly modern compared to the building's decay. "Jesus," Harrison breathed. "That's military grade. Your father must have installed it years ago." "It needs a fingerprint." Elena stared at the scanner, feeling hope curdle into something bitter. "My father's fingerprint, which we don't have because he's dead and probably cremated." Harrison was already opening his portfolio, pulling out yet another envelope. He anticipated this. DNA samples, fingerprint records, legal documentation establishing his identity and your inheritance. The scanner can be bypassed by a specialist with proper authorization. "How long will that take?" 3 days. Maybe 4. I know someone in corporate security who handles these situations. Elena checked her phone. 5:47 p.m. She'd missed 3 calls from Carmen and a text from Maria at the hospital. "You didn't show for shift. Don't bother coming back." Fired. She'd been fired. And Isabella was probably hungry and confused about why Mama hadn't picked her up. "I have to go," Elena said, panic rising. "I have to get my daughter." "Of course." Harrison helped her to her feet. "But Miss Reyes, we're close. Whatever your father hid, it's in there. 3 more days. 3 days. 72 hours. An eternity when you had no job and no money and a child depending on you." Elena looked around the penthouse one more time. At the sunrise room where she'd been happy once. At the fountain that might hide fortune or fantasy. At the wreckage of her father's dreams. "Call your specialist," she said. "But Harrison? If there's nothing in there, if this is just another lie my father told, I need you to lie to me. Tell me there was treasure and it was stolen. Tell me anything except that he wasted my time the way he wasted his life. Harrison's expression was compassionate. "I'll call you tomorrow with an update." The drive to Carmen's apartment took 40 minutes through traffic that felt personally malicious. Elena's hands ached from the chisel work. Her back screamed from 6 hours hunched over tiles. Her phone showed a bank balance of -$17.43 because some automatic payment had gone through and she hadn't had enough to cover it. Fired, no income, rent due in 8 days, and chasing ghosts in a condemned building because a dead man had left cryptic instructions. Carmen opened the door before Elena could knock, her expression mixing concern and judgment in equal measure. Isabella was visible behind her, watching TV with Carmen's kids, her small face lighting up when she saw her mother. "You look like hell," Carmen said bluntly, pulling Elena inside. "And Maria called. She said you just didn't show up." "Elena, what's going on?" "It's complicated. Complicated doesn't pay rent. Complicated doesn't feed Isabella." Carmen's voice rose with frustration. "You can't keep doing this, disappearing, chasing whatever crazy idea gets in your head. That child needs stability." "I know." Elena felt tears, threatening. "I know, Carmen. But something came up. Something with Dad's estate." "Dad?" Carmen's expression hardened. "Marcus Reyes has been dead to us for 3 decades. He doesn't get to have an estate that matters now." But Elena was looking at Isabella, at the way her daughter's joy at seeing her mother faded when she took in Elena's appearance. The dust and exhaustion, the hands wrapped in makeshift bandages, the defeat that must have been visible despite Elena's efforts to hide it. "Baby, get your things," Elena said, forcing brightness into her voice. "We're going home. Can I stay another night?" Isabella's question was tentative. Carmen said, "We could make cookies." The words hit harder than any physical blow. Her daughter would rather stay here than come home, would rather have cookies with her aunt than face whatever chaos Elena's life had become. "Sure, baby. One more night." Elena kissed Isabella's forehead, breathing in the scent of her daughter's shampoo. "I'll pick you up tomorrow after school." On the drive home, Carmen's words echoed in Elena's head. "That child needs stability." As if Elena didn't know, as if every choice she made wasn't about trying to provide exactly that, and failing anyway. Her phone rang as she pulled into her apartment complex. Unknown number, but Elena answered because ignoring calls felt like tempting fate. "Miss Reyes, this is Victor Castellano from Castellano Development." Elena didn't recognize the name, but the voice carried the smooth confidence of money and power. "I'm sorry. Who?" "I'm calling regarding the Valentino Grand. I understand you've inherited the property from Marcus Reyes. I'd like to make you an offer." The city already offered $500. "I'm offering $50,000. Cash, today, if you can meet me tonight to sign papers." Elena's breath caught. $50,000. Enough to solve every immediate problem. Rent, food, bills, a buffer against the next crisis. She could get her job back, or find a better one. Could give Isabella the stability Carmen was right to say she needed. "Why?" Elena asked, suspicion creeping in. "It's a condemned building scheduled for demolition. The land has value. Downtown is developing rapidly. That location will be worth considerably more in 5 years." Victor's explanation was smooth, practiced. "I'm willing to pay premium because I hate seeing properties rot while bureaucracy moves slowly. I need to think about it." "Of course. But Miss Reyes, the demolition is in 6 weeks. After that, the property is worthless. City will take it for back taxes, and you get nothing. $50,000 today versus nothing in 6 weeks. That's not a difficult choice." He was right. It wasn't difficult, unless you had a dying man's letter claiming there was $150 million, hidden in a flaw that might be concrete and delusion in equal measure. "I'll call you tomorrow," Elena said, ending the call before he could pressure further. Inside her apartment, the silence was oppressive. This was supposed to be home, but it felt temporary, like every place Elena had lived for the past decade. Rental furniture that wasn't really hers. Walls she couldn't paint. A life she couldn't settle into because she was always one crisis from eviction. She pulled out her father's letter, reading it again by the light of a lamp that flickered because the electrical system was barely functional. "I loved you. Every day. Even when I was too broken to show it. Lies were easy when you were dead. Easy to rewrite history, to claim feelings you'd never demonstrated." Marcus Reyes had chosen a building over his daughter, had spent 28 years alone rather than apologize and come home. That wasn't love. That was ego and cowardice dressed up as noble suffering. But what if he was telling the truth? What if he really had hidden something valuable, had sacrificed everything to keep it safe for her? Elena thought about the scanner beneath those tiles. Military grade, Harrison had said. That wasn't something you installed for fantasy treasure. That was real security for something genuinely valuable. Her phone buzzed. Text from Harrison. "Specialist can meet tomorrow, 10 a.m. We'll get into that safe room. Trust the process." Trust. Elena had learned early that trust was a luxury poor people couldn't afford. You trusted, and people left. You believed, and promises broke. You hoped, and reality reminded you that hope was for people with safety nets. But she'd already lost her job, had already gone this far. 3 more days wouldn't change anything except proving or disproving whether her father's final act had been love or just another broken promise in a life full of them. She texted back, "I'll be there." Then she lay down on her second-hand couch and closed her eyes, trying not to calculate how many hours until everything fell apart completely. Trying not to wonder if treasure was real or just another pretty lie that desperate people told themselves. The specialist arrived at the Valentino Grand at exactly 10 a.m., driving a white van with no markings. His name was Chen, and he looked like he belonged in a spy movie, all efficiency and technical competence, carrying equipment that probably cost more than Elena's car. "Military-grade biometric," he said after examining the scanner for 5 minutes. "Redundant systems. Your father wasn't playing around. Whatever's in there, he really didn't want anyone getting to it." "Can you open it?" Elena asked, watching him work. "Can I open it?" "Yes. Question is whether I should." Chen looked up at her, his expression serious. "Once we bypass this system, we're committed. If there's nothing inside, or if there's something illegal, or if this whole thing is some elaborate setup, we're all implicated." Harrison stepped forward. "Everything is documented and legal. Miss Reyes is the legitimate heir. Whatever we find belongs to her." "Fine. But I'm recording everything. And if law enforcement shows up, I'm cooperating fully." Chen pulled out equipment that looked like it belonged in a science lab. "This will take approximately 2 hours. The system has multiple layers." They waited. Elena paced the penthouse, unable to sit still, her mind racing through possibilities. What if it was drugs? What if her father had been involved in something criminal, and this treasure was evidence that would destroy her life? What if it was empty? What if the scanner protected nothing but air and broken dreams? Isabella had asked that morning, during the brief phone call Elena made before school. "When are we going home, Mama?" Our real home? Our real home. As if they had one. As if anywhere Elena could afford would ever feel permanent enough to call real. "Soon, baby," Elena had lied. "Soon, Miss Reyes." Chen's voice pulled her back. "I'm through the first 2 layers. 1 more to go." Harrison was documenting everything on his phone, creating a legal record of the discovery. He'd explained during the drive over that whatever they found, there would be questions, tax implications, possible claims from creditors, the need to authenticate and appraise before making any decisions. Elena barely heard him. All she could think about was Isabella's question and her own lying answer. Soon could mean anything. Could mean never. Final layer, Chen announced. Inputting bypass code. Now. The scanner beeped 3 times. Then, with a mechanical whir that sounded impossibly loud in the dead building, something moved beneath them. The section of floor where the fountain had stood began to rise, hydraulics hissing as they lifted a platform that revealed stairs descending into darkness. Holy shit, Chen breathed. I've seen some setups, but this is next level. Elena approached the edge, looking down into blackness that seemed absolute. The stairs were metal, industrial strength, leading down maybe 10 feet. Flashlights, Harrison said, pulling 2 from his bag. Stay behind me. We don't know the condition of the space. They descended carefully, each step echoing metallically. The safe room was maybe 15 feet square, the walls reinforced concrete, the ceiling low enough that Harrison had to duck, and in the center, on a pedestal that looked deliberately dramatic, sat a steel case. The case was locked with another biometric scanner, but Chen made short work of it. 5 minutes later, the lid opened with a hydraulic hiss that released air that had been sealed away for decades. Inside, nestled in custom foam padding, were diamonds. Elena had never seen diamonds like this. Not in jewelry stores, not in magazines, not anywhere. They were huge, some the size of her thumb, cut in ways that caught the flashlight beams and exploded them into rainbows. And the colors, these weren't traditional, clear diamonds. These were blue and pink and deep cognac, yellow and green, rare beyond anything Elena had context for. Are those real? Her voice came out as a whisper. Harrison knelt beside the case, examining without touching. They're real, and unless I'm mistaken, these are colored diamonds, extremely rare. Some of these colors are rarer than others. The blue alone. The blue is a type 2B, Chen interrupted, his professional detachment cracking into something like awe. Maybe 45 carats. Conservatively, that's $35 million. And there are 6 more of similar size and quality. Elena's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the concrete floor, unable to process what she was hearing. $35 million for 1 diamond. 1. And there were dozens in this case. The appraisal said $150 million, Harrison said, his voice shaking slightly. Looking at these, I think that was conservative. A collection like this, authenticated and auctioned properly, could exceed $200 million. $200 million. The number was so large it stopped meaning anything. Elena couldn't conceptualize it, couldn't attach it to anything real in her life. It was monopoly money. Fantasy. Miss Reyes? Harrison's hand on her shoulder was gentle. Are you all right? My daughter asked me this morning when we were going home. Elena's voice sounded distant to her own ears. Our real home. And I didn't know what to tell her because I don't have a home. I have a month-to-month apartment I can't afford, and a car that's dying and nothing else. Nothing. She looked up at Harrison, at Chen, at these men who existed in a world where $200 million wasn't fantasy. Is this real? Please tell me the truth. Is this actually happening? It's real, Harrison confirmed. Your father told the truth. He kept this for you. Elena stood slowly, walking back to the case, looking at the diamonds that represented more money than she could spend in 10 lifetimes. Her father had hidden this, had lived in poverty to protect it, had died alone rather than sell even one of these stones to make his life bearable. Why? The question came out raw. Why would he do this? Live like he did, when he could have sold one diamond and been comfortable. Why? Suffer for 28 years. Harrison pulled out another envelope. He left something else. Another letter. I was instructed to give it to you only after you found the collection. Elena took it with numb fingers, opening paper that felt too heavy for words. Elena, if you're reading this, you found them. Good. I was afraid the hydraulics would fail, or the scanner would degrade, or the building would collapse before you got here. I'm glad I was wrong. You're wondering why I lived the way I did when selling even one of these would have changed everything. The answer is simple. I couldn't. Not legally. I acquired this collection in 1992 from a man who needed to liquidate quickly. Too quickly. I paid $200,000 every penny I had, and only afterward learned that several of these stones were reported stolen in a robbery 3 years earlier. Not all of them. Maybe 4 or 5. But enough that selling any of them would have triggered investigations. I couldn't go to police because I'd bought stolen property, even unknowingly. Couldn't sell them because authentication would reveal their origins. I was trapped with a fortune I couldn't touch, but I kept them safe, kept them hidden. Spent 28 years making sure no one found them, because I knew the statute of limitations would eventually expire. And it did. Last year. After 7 years, the insurance company can't claim them. After 15 years, criminal prosecution becomes difficult. After 30, it's nearly impossible. I waited 30 years so you could claim them cleanly. So you wouldn't inherit my mistakes along with my treasure. The diamonds are legally yours now. The original theft claim is resolved. The insurance paid out decades ago. You can authenticate and sell them without criminal risk. I know this doesn't excuse leaving you, doesn't make up for missing your life. But Elena, I didn't suffer for 30 years to protect my ego. I suffered to protect your future. Every day in that building was a day closer to giving you freedom. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to tell you this while I was alive. Sorry, you had to find it this way. But I never stopped thinking about you. Never stopped hoping that someday you'd forgive me enough to claim what I kept for you. Use it wisely, Misha. Use it to build the life I couldn't give you. And maybe, if there's any mercy in the universe, tell Isabella that her abuelo loved her even though he never got to meet her. All my love. Forever. Dad. Elena read it twice. 3 times. The words rearranging her understanding of everything. Her father hadn't just abandoned his family, he'd trapped himself trying to fix a mistake, then spent decades suffering to make sure that mistake didn't destroy his daughter's future. The theft claim, she said to Harrison. Is it true? Can I legally claim these? I researched it after seeing his letter yesterday. There was a robbery in 1989. Several colored diamonds were taken from a private collection in New York. Insurance paid out approximately $50 million. The case went cold. After 30 years, yes, ownership would transfer to you as legitimate purchaser through inheritance. The insurance company might file a civil claim, but their chances of success are minimal. How minimal? 10%? Maybe less. You're the good faith heir. Your father's been dead 3 months. The diamonds were hidden for 3 decades. Any judge would rule in your favor. Elena looked at the case, at the fortune that had consumed her father's life. What happens now? We secure the diamonds, get them to a bank vault. Then we begin authentication and legal documentation. The process will take 6 months, maybe longer. But Miss Reyes, once it's complete, you'll have generational wealth. Your daughter, her children, their children, none of them will ever struggle the way you have. Generational wealth. The phrase felt foreign. Elena had lived paycheck to paycheck for so long that planning beyond next week seemed impossible. Now, she was supposed to think in terms of generations? I need to get Isabella, she said suddenly. I need to see my daughter, of course. Chen and I will handle the security transfer. You should go. Elena climbed the stairs out of the safe room, walked through the penthouse, down 23 flights to the lobby. Her legs moved automatically, while her mind spun in circles that went nowhere. Her father had loved her, had suffered for her, had given her the kind of future she'd never dared imagine. And she'd hated him for 28 years, had nursed that hate like it was the only thing she owned that no one could take away. Outside the Valentino Grand, Los Angeles stretched in every direction, indifferent and enormous. Somewhere in that sprawl, Isabella was sitting in a classroom, learning math or history, not knowing that everything had changed, that her mother could now give her anything, everything. Elena pulled out her phone and called Carmen. I need you to pick up Isabella from school. Bring her to the Valentino Grand. Elena, I told you. I know what. You told me. You're right. But Carmen, I need her to see something. Please, trust me this once. A long pause. Then, fine. But this is the last time I'm enabling whatever's going on with you. Elena hung up and called Victor Castellano. Miss Reyes, he answered immediately. Have you considered my offer? I have. The answer is no. Miss Reyes, please reconsider. $50,000 is nothing compared to what I'm keeping. Thank you for the offer, but the Valentino Grand stays in my family. She ended the call before he could respond, feeling something fierce and protective rising in her chest. Her father had built this place, had hidden treasure here, had lived and died within these walls. It was part of her history, and history wasn't something you sold for convenience. Isabella arrived 2 hours later, Carmen's car pulling up to the chain-link fence with visible reluctance. Elena watched her daughter emerge, small and beautiful, and completely unaware that her world had just transformed. Mama! Isabella ran to her, all energy and questions. Aunt Carmen said you needed me. What's wrong? Are you okay? I'm okay, baby. Better than okay. Elena knelt to Isabella's level. I need to show you something. Something your abuelo left for us. Abuelo? Isabella's face scrunched in confusion. I don't have an abuelo. You did. He died before you could meet him. But he left you a present. Want to see? They climbed together, Elena carrying Isabella when her daughter got tired, Carmen following with skeptical silence. 23 flights took forever with a 7-year-old, but Elena didn't rush. Let this be the journey. Let Isabella remember the effort it took to reach the treasure. The penthouse made Isabella gasp. It's like a castle. A broken castle. But still, your abuelo built this. A long time ago, when he had big dreams. Harrison and Chen were gone, the diamonds secured and removed. But the safe room remained open, the platform still raised, the stairs descending into darkness that didn't feel threatening now. Come see, Elena said, leading Isabella to the edge. They descended together, and at the bottom, Harrison had left one diamond on the pedestal. A small one, maybe 5 carats, but it caught the light from Elena's phone and painted the walls in blue fire. Is that a diamond? Isabella whispered. Reverent. It is. Your abuelo hid these for us. For me. And for you. So we'd never have to struggle. How many are there? Enough that you can go to any college you want. Enough that we can have a real home. Enough that you never have to watch me cry over bills or worry about food or anything that scared you. Before. Isabella looked up at her mother, and Elena saw something she hadn't seen in years. Not just happiness. Security. The knowledge that things would be okay. Can we keep this castle? Isabella asked. Fix it up? So it's pretty again? Elena looked around the safe room that had protected treasure for 30 years, looked up at the penthouse above, at the building that had consumed her father's life. Maybe, she said. Would you like that? I want to know about Abuelo, about why he built this. Can you tell me stories? Elena thought about the letters in her pocket, about the life she'd misunderstood for 3 decades, about a man who'd made terrible choices but had loved anyway, the only way he knew how. "I can tell you stories," she promised. "All of them. The good and the bad." They sat together in the safe room. Elena, spinning tales of a grandfather Isabella would never meet but could know through his choices. Carmen joined them eventually, sitting on the stairs, listening to family history that was messy and complicated and real. When they finally climbed back to the penthouse, the sunset was painting the sky in colors that seemed impossible. Elena carried Isabella to the sunrise room, to the exact spot where her father had held her 30 years ago. "This is where Abuelo and I watched the sunrise," she told her daughter. "He said, the most valuable things are always hidden in plain sight." What did he mean? I think he meant that love is more valuable than money, but that when you love someone, you protect what they'll need. Isabella nestled against Elena's shoulder. "I love you, Mama. I love you too, baby. So much." They watched the sun set over Los Angeles, the city transforming from harsh to gentle in the golden light. Somewhere below, Harrison was arranging security and legal protection. Victor Castellano was probably seething about the lost deal. Life was continuing in all its chaotic complexity. But up here, in this moment, Elena felt something she'd never experienced before. Peace. The certainty that her daughter would be okay. That she'd broken the cycle of struggle that had defined generations. That her father's sacrifice hadn't been for nothing. "What happens next?" Carmen asked quietly, coming to stand beside them. "We authenticate the diamonds, sell what we need to, build a life." Elena's voice was steady. "And maybe restore this building. Turn it into something that honors what Dad tried to build. That'll cost millions. We have millions." The truth of it was still sinking in. They had millions. Plural. More than Elena could conceptualize. Enough to solve every problem and create entirely new categories of problems she'd need to learn to navigate. But those were tomorrow's concerns. Tonight was for sitting in the ruins of her father's dreams and understanding that broken things could still hold treasure, that abandoned places could still shelter hope, that fathers who left could still love from a distance. "Thank you," Elena whispered to the sunset, to the ghost of Marcus Reyes, to the universe that had granted this impossible mercy. "Thank you for not giving up." The building groaned around them, settling into its foundation. In 6 weeks, it would have been demolished, the damned treasure crushed, the story lost forever. But Elena had found it in time, had claimed her inheritance, had proven that sometimes, just sometimes, the desperate and determined could win. She pulled Isabella closer and watched the sun disappear, painting the sky in promise, the same way it had 3 decades ago, when a father held his daughter and made a choice that would echo through time. The most valuable things are hidden in plain sight. Her father had been right. The treasure wasn't in the diamonds. It was in the love that had suffered 3 decades to protect them. It was in the choice to keep going, even when everything fell apart. It was in the daughter who'd hated him, learning to understand. It was in this moment, this sunset, this beginning, and it was enough. 6 months later, the courtroom was less dramatic than Elena expected. Just wood paneling and fluorescent lights, and a judge who looked tired of hearing cases about money. In the matter of Reyes versus Sentinel Insurance, the judge began, reading from paperwork that represented months of legal maneuvering. "I find in favor of the defendant. Miss Reyes is the legitimate heir to Marcus Reyes's estate. The diamonds, in question, acquired in good faith through purchase in 1992, are her legal property. The insurance claim filed 34 years ago is resolved. Sentinel Insurance has no standing to claim ownership." The gavel fell. Just like that. 6 months of depositions and hearings and expert testimony. And it was over in 30 seconds. Harrison squeezed Elena's shoulder. It's done. They're legally yours. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. The story had leaked 3 months ago. Single mom discovers $200 million in diamonds in condemned hotel, and the media had been circling ever since. Elena had learned to navigate interviews with careful words and legal guidance, but she still hated the attention. Miss Reyes, will you sell the collection? What will you do with the money? Is it true you were working as a hospital janitor 6 months ago? Elena ignored them, focusing on Isabella waiting in Carmen's car. Her daughter had adjusted remarkably well to their changing circumstances. They'd moved into a house in a good neighborhood. Isabella had started at a private school. Life had stabilized in ways Elena still couldn't quite believe. But the Valentino Grand remained. Elena had fought the demolition order, hired structural engineers, began the slow process of restoration. It would take years and millions of dollars. Many people told her she was crazy, that the building was beyond saving. She didn't care. It was her father's legacy, and hers now. She'd finish what he started. The diamond sale happened quietly, through private auction, to collectors who appreciated what they were acquiring. Colored diamonds of this quality rarely came to market. When they did, the prices were astronomical. Final tally, $247 million. After taxes and legal fees, Elena netted $164 million. $164 million. Elena still couldn't conceptualize it. She'd set up trusts for Isabella, for Carmen and her kids, for cousins she barely knew but who'd helped when she needed it. She'd established a foundation in her father's name, funding housing for families, facing eviction, paying off medical debt for single mothers, supporting women trying to escape poverty. And she'd started the Reyes School of Hospitality, a program that trained disadvantaged young people in hotel management, offering them the opportunities her father had squandered. The grand reopening of the Valentino Grand was scheduled for the 1-year anniversary of the diamond discovery. Elena stood in the lobby restored to its original glory, with marble floors that gleamed and a fountain that actually worked, and marveled at the transformation. "It's beautiful, Mama," Isabella said, spinning in a dress that cost more than Elena used to make in a month. "Your abuelo would be proud," Carmen admitted, her skepticism finally giving way to something like acceptance. The hotel wouldn't operate commercially. Instead, it would house the Reyes Foundation offices, provide transitional housing for families in need, and serve as a community center. The Penthouse would remain as it was, a museum dedicated to Marcus Reyes's story, the rise, the fall, the 30 years of suffering, and the treasure that redeemed it all. In the sunrise room, Elena had installed a memorial. Her father's letters were framed on the wall, the original fountain diagram, photos of the diamond discovery, and a plaque that read, Marcus Valentino Reyes, 1951 to 2024. He built dreams in concrete and love in secrecy. Spent 30 years protecting what he couldn't show. A father who failed in every visible way, but loved in the way that mattered most. At the dedication ceremony, Elena gave a speech to assembled friends, family, and media who'd followed the story from the beginning. "My father left when I was 6 years old," she began, her voice steady. "I hated him for 28 years. Hated him for choosing a building over his daughter, for dying alone rather than coming home. I thought I understood his choices. I was wrong." She looked up at the penthouse, at windows that gleamed with new glass. Marcus Reyes made terrible choices. He was proud and stubborn and too ashamed to admit failure. But he was also a man who spent 30 years suffering to protect his daughter's future, who lived in poverty to keep a treasure safe, who loved in the only way his broken pride would allow. Isabella stood beside her, holding her hand. I don't forgive him for leaving. But I understand now that people are complicated, that they can be wrong about everything and right about the one thing that matters. My father was right about one thing. He loved me. And that love, hidden and imperfect as it was, changed everything. The crowd applauded. Elena let the sound wash over her, still surreal after months of attention. Later, after everyone had gone home, Elena and Isabella went to the penthouse one more time. The safe room was empty now. The diamonds sold and scattered to collectors worldwide. But the space remained, a concrete memory of secrets kept. Tell me again about the morning, Isabella requested, as she did every time they visited, when you and Abuelo watched the sunrise. Elena carried her daughter to the sunrise room window. Dawn was still hours away, but the city lights below created their own constellation. I was very small, Elena began, the fastened story polished, smooth through retelling. And your abuelo lifted me onto his shoulders so I could see better. The sun came up over the mountains, painting everything gold. And he said the most valuable things are hidden in plain sight. Because he loved you. Because he loved me. They stood, together in silence, watching the city that had broken her father and redeemed him in equal measure. Somewhere in that sprawl, other families were struggling. Other single mothers were working 3 jobs. Other children were growing up in poverty that felt inescapable. Elena's foundation couldn't help everyone, but it could help some. And that was more than Marcus Reyes had been able to do. It was the best way to honor his sacrifice by transforming his hidden treasure into visible hope. Mama, Isabella's voice was sleepy. When I grow up, can I help people too? You can do anything you want, baby. Anything at all. I want to help people find treasure, the kind that's hidden in plain sight. Elena smiled, holding her daughter close. Then, that's exactly what you'll do. They left the penthouse as dawn approached. The Valentino Grand stood solid beneath them, no longer condemned, no longer dying. Restored, transformed, a monument to complicated love and stubborn faith. In the lobby, Elena paused at her father's portrait. Harrison had found a photo from the hotel's opening in 1989. Marcus, young and proud, and convinced his dreams would last forever. The frame held both that photo and one from the diamond discovery, Elena, covered in dust and exhaustion, holding a blue diamond worth millions. Father and daughter, separated by 30 years and united by treasure. I wish you'd come home, Elena whispered to the portrait. I wish you'd been brave enough to face us. But I understand now why you couldn't. And I forgive you for that. The words felt true. Not completely, some hurts went too deep for complete healing, but true enough. Her father had given her more than diamonds. He'd given her proof that love could survive impossible circumstances, that fathers could protect even when they couldn't provide, that the most valuable inheritances were the ones hidden beneath layers of pain and time. Isabella tugged her hand. Can we come back tomorrow? We can come back whenever you want. This is ours now, yours and mine, and everyone who needs it. They walked out into Los Angeles sunrise, the city transforming from night to day in the slow magic of changing light. The Valentino Grand stood behind them, solid and permanent, no longer a monument to failure, but a testament to redemption. Elena's phone buzzed. A text from the foundation director. We just paid off medical debt for 200 families. Thank you for making this possible. Thank you for making this possible. But Elena hadn't made it possible. Her father had, through 30 years of suffering, through choices that looked like abandonment but were actually protection, through love that had to hide, to survive. Thank you, Dad, Elena said to the sunrise, to the building, to the memory of a man she'd misunderstood. Thank you for never selling, Thank you for waiting. Thank you for loving me the only way you could." The sun climbed higher. Isabella fell asleep in the car on the drive home, and Elena navigated morning traffic with the certainty that some stories had happy endings even when they were built from broken pieces. The treasure had been real. The love had been real. The possibility of redemption was real. And that, Elena had learned, was worth more than all the diamonds in the world. Part 2. The Legacy. 5 years after the diamond discovery, Elena stood in the Valentino Reyes ballroom, watching Isabella, now 12 years old, give a presentation to a group of young women from the Foundation's scholarship program. Her daughter moved with confidence, explaining the history of the building with passion that reminded Elena painfully of Marcus. "My grandfather built this place with dreams that were too big," Isabella told her audience. "He failed, lost everything, spent 30 years alone because he was too proud to admit he'd been wrong. But he never stopped, protecting what mattered most." Elena felt tears threatening. Isabella had never met Marcus, but she'd studied him obsessively, reading his journals, interviewing people who'd known him, building a portrait of a grandfather who existed only in stories and choices. The presentation ended with applause. Afterward, a young woman approached Elena nervously. She was maybe 19, wearing clothes that were clean but worn, carrying herself with the particular tension of someone who'd learned early that the world wasn't safe. "Miss Reyes? My name is Maria Santos. I'm in the Foundation's Maria housing program. I just wanted to say," she paused, fighting emotion. "3 months ago, I was living in my car with my baby. Your foundation gave us an apartment, helped me get childcare, enrolled me in hospitality training. You saved our lives." Elena took Maria's hands. "The foundation saved your life. I just funded it." "No," Maria insisted. "You chose to share what you found. You could have kept everything, lived in some mansion, never thought about people like me. But you didn't. You remembered what it was like. That's the real treasure." After Maria left, Elena found herself drawn to the Penthouse. She still came here when she needed to think, when the weight of decisions felt too heavy. The space had been preserved exactly as they'd found it. Though now climate-controlled and protected, the safe room remained open, a reminder of secrets kept and revealed. Elena descended the metal stairs, her footsteps echoing the same way they had that first day. 5 years ago, she'd been desperate, drowning, one crisis from complete collapse. Now she was one of the wealthiest women in California, served on charity boards, had been interviewed by Forbes, and featured in documentaries. The transformation should have felt more dramatic, but mostly it felt strange, like she was playing a role in someone else's life. Her phone buzzed. "Carmen, just saw Isabella's presentation online. She's amazing, Elena. You did good." Elena smiled. Carmen had been skeptical for months after the diamond discovery, certain Elena would somehow lose everything or that it would corrupt her. But she'd eventually accepted that wealth hadn't changed Elena's fundamental nature. It had just removed the obstacles that had hidden it. A sound made Elena look up. Harrison stood at the top of the stairs, silver hair gleaming in the preserved lighting. "I thought I'd find you here," he said, descending to join her. "Big day tomorrow. The documentary premieres." The documentary. A film crew had spent 18 months documenting the Valentino Reyes restoration, Elena's foundation, work, and the complicated legacy of Marcus Reyes. Tomorrow it would debut at film festivals, and the story would reach millions. "I'm nervous," Elena admitted. "What if people think I'm trying to make my father into some kind of hero? He wasn't. He was a man who made terrible choices. He was a man who made terrible choices that led to an extraordinary gift," Harrison corrected gently. "Both things can be true." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of history pressing down like the concrete above them. "I found something," Harrison said finally, pulling an envelope from his jacket. "Going through the last of your father's effects. It's dated 1 week before he died." Elena took it with trembling hands. Another letter. After 5 years, she thought she'd read everything Marcus had left behind. But apparently, he'd had one more secret. "My dearest Elena," the letter began, in handwriting that shook with illness. "If you're reading this, you found the diamonds, and Harrison is giving you this final piece. I'm writing this from hospice, knowing I have days, maybe hours. The cancer has won, but I don't feel defeated. I need to tell you about the morning we watched the sunrise. You were 6 years old, and we just spent the night at the Valentino Grand. You woke up early, came to find me in the penthouse. I was standing at the window, looking at the city I'd tried to conquer, understanding finally that I'd failed. You climbed into my arms and said, 'Daddy, why are you sad?' I told you I wasn't sad, but you, with the clarity children have, said, 'Yes, you are, but it's okay. Sad things can turn into happy things if you wait long enough.' I asked you how you knew that, and you said, 'Because when I'm sad, you hold me until I'm happy again. So maybe the city will hold you until you're happy too.' Elena, you were 6 years old, and you understood something I spent 30 years learning. That holding on even when everything falls apart matters. That persistence transforms pain. That love survives failure. I never sold those diamonds, because every time I considered it, I remembered your words. The city was holding me until I could make something sad turn into something happy. The treasure was my way of holding you until I could finally give you what I'd failed to provide while I was alive. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I hope you'll understand that every day in that building, every year of poverty and loneliness, I was waiting for sad things to turn into happy things, waiting for the city to hold me until I could hold you again, even if only through treasure left behind. You made me a better man that morning. Mija, you just didn't know it yet. I love you. I always have. I always will. Forever your father, Marcus." Elena read it 3 times, tears streaming freely now. Harrison handed her a handkerchief with characteristic thoughtfulness. "I was 6 years old," she whispered. "I don't even to remember saying that." "Children often say profound things without knowing," Harrison said softly. "Your father remembered for both of you." Elena folded the letter carefully, adding it to the collection she kept in the Penthouse archive. So many letters, so many attempts by a dying man to explain, choices that couldn't be explained, only understood. "Come on," Harrison said gently. "Isabella's waiting. She wants to show you something." They found Isabella in what had been Marcus's office, now converted into the Foundation's youth center. She'd been working on a project for weeks, refusing to reveal it until it was perfect. "Mama, look." Isabella gestured to the wall, where she'd created a timeline. Photos, documents, news clippings, chronicling 3 generations of Reyes family history. At the beginning, Marcus's parents, immigrants who'd built a small restaurant into a successful business. Then Marcus himself, young and ambitious, building the Valentino Grand with dreams too big for reality. The collapse, the 30 years of silence. Elena's struggles, the discovery, the transformation. But Isabella had added something new at the end. A section titled, "The Next Chapter," featuring photos of the women the Foundation had helped. Maria Santos and her baby. Families in transitional housing. Young people graduating from the hospitality program. "This is Abuelo's real legacy," Isabella explained. "Not the building, not even the diamonds. It's what you did with them, Mama. It's all the lives that changed because he never gave up." Elena pulled her daughter close, overwhelmed by gratitude for this child who'd turned treasure into meaning, who'd taken a grandfather's complicated legacy and transformed it into inspiration. When I grow up, Isabella continued, I want to run the foundation. I want to help people find their own treasures, the kind hidden in plain sight. The kind called hope, Elena said, remembering her father's words. Exactly. That evening, Elena stood one final time in the sunrise room. Tomorrow, the documentary would premiere, and the world would judge Marcus Reyes's choices. Some would call him a hero, others would say he was a coward who got lucky. Both would be partially right and completely wrong. The truth was simpler and more complicated. Marcus Reyes was a man who'd failed at almost everything except the one thing that mattered most. He'd protected his daughter's future, even when it cost him everything else. The sun set over Los Angeles, painting the sky in colors that seemed impossibly beautiful. Elena thought about 6-year-old her, telling her father that sad things could turn into happy things if you waited long enough. She'd been right. It had taken 34 years, but sadness had transformed. The broken building was restored. The abandoned daughter had found peace. The treasure hidden in darkness now brought light to hundreds of lives. Thank you, Daddy, Elena whispered to the sunset. For waiting, for holding on, for loving me the only way you knew how. Behind her, Isabella appeared, slipping her hand into Elena's. Mama, can we watch the sunrise tomorrow? Like you and Abuelo did? We can watch the sunrise every day if you want. They stood together as darkness fell, and the city transformed into a carpet of lights. Mother and daughter, past and future, bound by a treasure that had been hidden for 30 years and had finally found its purpose. The Valentino Grand stood solid beneath them, no longer condemned, no longer dying, a monument to the truth that broken things could be made whole, that abandoned dreams could find redemption, that love hidden and imperfect, as it might be, could survive anything, even death, even time, even the terrible choices people made when they didn't know better. Elena understood now what her father had meant about treasures hidden in plain sight. The real treasure had never been the diamonds. It had been the love that protected them, the faith that someday someone would find them and understand. She had found them. She had understood. And now, standing in the place where her father had spent 30 years suffering and hoping in equal measure, Elena finally felt complete. The sad things had turned happy. The city had held them both until they could hold each other again, across death and time and the vast distance between failure and redemption. And that, Elena knew, was worth more than all the diamonds in the world. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.